Today we're going to be cutting down this big ash tree. So we're shooting for it to fall right next to that stump there. I'm not sure if I got my angle quite right. It should be really close. We'll find out. So I'm going to give you my opinion and tips and tricks for how to cut down a tree, but definitely leave your thoughts down in the comment section, and then also just dig around and get a few different opinions on the best methods. So here we go. Let's take a look at what we've got going on here. This is a big ash tree that is leaning that direction. That's one of the first things that you want to establish, is figure out if the tree has an obvious lean, and if at all possible you want to fell it in the direction of the lean. Well, you actually don't really have the option. There's no way that we could get that tree to fall exactly the opposite way without pulling on it or doing something different. Now on this bottom edge right here, we're going to be cutting a notch on the side where the tree is going to fall. So we're going to cut a notch about 1/3 of the way into the tree, and it's going to go flat across the bottom and then angle down from the top, and that's going to give us our hinge point. And our hinge wood is the point where our wedge ends and where our cut from this side meets that. Obviously, it goes without saying, wearing eye protection, ear protection, and some gloves is a good idea. And the tougher the gloves, the better. And also you should wear some chaps, chainsaw chaps, but I don't have those, but I'll link to them in the description. If you want to be safe, be safe. We're going to be using a Husqvarna 455 Rancher. This isn't particularly a huge saw, but it's also decently capable. Now this thing has an 18-inch bar on it, and the chain is brand new, but you either want a brand new chain or you want something that is really nice and sharp. You don't want to be fighting your saw with it curving off one direction or the other. We'll start by cutting this notch, and I'll actually show you guys what that notch looks like before we move on to the next step. Now, as long as you're going with the angle that the tree is already leaning, you can actually choose where you want the tree to fall. And the way you do that is by aiming your saw perpendicular to the direction that you want the tree to fall. So if you want the tree to fall this way, then you would cut your cut just like this. If you want it to fall this way, then you would put the saw at this angle. So perpendicular to your saw is the direction that you're actually going to have your tree fall. So we're going to use that method, and we're going to try to land just to the right hand side of that stump over there, and we'll see if we're able to accurately aim this tree for that spot. So right there is our wedge. Turned out pretty nice. Smells amazing. It's an ash tree, if you like the smell of ash trees anyway. So right here is a look at that wedge. You can see that we took out about 1/3 of the width, maybe a tiny bit more. Now for this next part, depending on how big the tree is, if you have to cut it from both sides, sometimes I'll plunge cut it, making sure not to affect the hinge. The hinge is about a 1 inch wide or 2 inches wide piece of wood right here in the middle. And so I'll plunge cut it right next to that, and then leave a little bit of wood over there and on the hinge. That way the tree doesn't move at all while you're working on cutting it from both sides to make it all the way through. But if you can make it all the way through at once, you can just cut in from one direction. I'll go ahead and show you the plunge cut method. That way you kind of understand what I'm talking about. So now we've plunge cut through most of the tree, but we still have a little bit left right here. So now we gotta plunge cut it from this side and do the exact same thing. So let's get a close-up one more time of what we had to do here, and that is the wedge. We cut a wedge about 1/3 of the way into the tree, maybe a tiny bit more in this case, and that's going to give us our hinge point. And our hinge wood is this little bit of wood in between where our fall cut is and where the actual hinge is. So there's a little bit of wood here, and that's going to allow the tree to pivot right at that point. Then we made a plunge cut from this side and a plunge cut from the opposite side, and so those met up, and we left our hinge wood in between and a little bit of retaining wood right here on this edge, probably about 2 inches. So when I cut this thing, I'm going to cut through about 2 inches of wood, and the tree should immediately begin to fall. You want to make sure that you plan your escape route before you cut the tree. So when I cut this, I'm going to head straight that direction and make sure that you get out of the way. And if you're not really sure which way it's leaning, you should have a couple different paths that you can possibly take to get out of the way. All right, let's do this. So we want our tree to land somewhere right about there. So we'll see if we're able to accomplish our goal. Right about there. Well, hey, I think that turned out pretty fantastic. It landed almost exactly where I wanted it to. Right here you can see exactly what we were trying to do, and we did a pretty good job of it. Like I said, I don't do this every day, so I'm not the best in the world, but you can see we plunge cut it from both directions, and we ended up with this little bit of hinge wood in the middle. The hinge wood got a little bit thin there in the middle, but it was still plenty to direct which way the tree was falling. And then right here is our wedge, like we already talked about, so it allows it to start tipping. If you didn't have the wedge, the tree wouldn't be able to start tipping very far, and it might just tip a little bit and then stop, which you do not want. You want the tree to fall completely once it starts falling. And finally, over on this edge right here, we had a couple inches of wood that was holding the tree from falling so that we had time to plunge cut from both directions. If you have any thoughts or recommendations on cutting down trees, put them in the comment section under this video. I am not the best at this in the world, but hopefully this gave you at least a good idea of what's involved. So this isn't a complete guide or anything like that, but it's something that will at least help you understand the process a tiny bit more. If you found this to be useful, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe down below for more videos just like this one. In the meantime, I'll put another video right here on the screen. I'm not sure if I have anything that's really related to this because normally I'm doing HVAC and electrical videos, but I'd love to have you either way.